Peach Pundit, the podcast, is a conversation filled with the personal opinions of the people who are participating. Any view or opinion expressed belongs only to the person who expressed it and not with anyone with whom that person is professionally affiliated.
I tell you that pick scrape at the beginning there, perfectly added, right, leads into the solo. Sounds so good. I sound like Donald Trump right there. Hey, folks, welcome to another episode of the
Beautiful,
podcast.
wonderful,
beautiful, wonderful pick scrape. It's the
most beautiful pick scrape I've ever.
Big beautiful pick scrape. They don't make them like they used to. We need pick scrapes like we had in the 1950s and 60s. So. Welcome to another episode of Peach Pundit podcast. I'm Jason Pye, joined by Scott Turner and Buzz Brockway. Guys, it's good to see you both. Buzz is in Georgia. I am in Virginia. Scott is in an undisclosed location.
I'm in the desert.
Desert. Which
desert,
though?
I often feel like I'm left out wandering in the desert these days. So
an actual desert, not necessarily an emotional or political desert.
Yeah. Thank you for picking up the reference. That's exactly what's happening here. I'm at a conference in Phoenix. This is my hotel room. Apologies for the crappy setup and
really bad Wi-Fi.
hotel Wi-Fi. Yeah, absolutely.
It's okay. It's that season. It's conference season. I have a couple coming up myself, and it's also graduation season. We attended Emily's younger brother's graduation up at George Mason University, which was pretty awesome. He had the specific school he was in last night, and he did the walk up, all that stuff, and then they did the full class graduation today. So we partaked in the events, and we are thankfully back home just in time to get the dog from the kennel and pick Reagan up from the bus stop. So fun times all around. So, but before we have what I think will be a pretty lively discussion today on a number of things that are happening in the world around us. But before we get to those things, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, mark your calendars because it's campaign season. We have a special election for Senate District 21. And our friends at Americans for Prosperity will be hosting a candidate forum for that special election, which is yet to be called. The event will take place on Monday, June 2nd. The Timbers on Etowah in Canton. Doors will open at 6:30 p.m. The program kicks off at 7 o'clock sharp. This is your chance to hear directly from the folks who want to fill the seat recently vacated in the Georgia Senate by now U.S. Treasurer Brandon Beach. There are something like 8 candidates in that race at this point, 7 Republicans, 1 Democrat. And if you come, you'll likely see me because, as far as I know, I'm the moderator for that little thing. So come on out and see us. We'll hope to get you nice and informed in the typical Peach Pundit style. Thank you to our friends at Americans for Prosperity for being a partner level Patreon. If you too would like to be a patron, head on over to patreon.com/peachpundit. Sign up for one of our tiers today.
Peach Pundit has an anonymous Patreon who would like to invite you to learn more about the Alzheimer's Association. The Alzheimer's Association leads the way to end Alzheimer's and all other dementia by accelerating global research, driving risk reduction and early detection, and maximizing quality care and support. No one should fight Alzheimer's alone. With your help, no one will. Learn more on their website, alz.org.
So Buzz we're going to go Buzz's topic first because I think his is the most optimistic of
at least it shouldn't be controversial, at least maybe.
Most optimistic of our individual topics. So Buzz wants to talk about the Science Square Midtown, which hopes to become the biomedical research hub of the South. So Buzz, kick it over to you.
So earlier in the week, I was down at Georgia Tech at the Capitol Jackets meeting. It's a group of politically minded Georgia Tech folks, and our old pal Bert Reeves organizes it in his office, organize it. Georgia's name came up, some good, some bad. So, but we were at a building called on a part of campus, just off of campus, just on the other side of North Avenue, that's now known as Science Square. And if you've been to Midtown over the last few years, you've seen something called Tech Square, which is, back in my day, there was this scary tunnel that went underneath the freeway and nobody dared walk through it because it went across the freeway off the campus into Midtown. And Midtown was not a nice place back then. And we called it like the murder tunnel because everybody was scared. If you walk through that thing, you're just going to get murdered right there. But Midtown across the freeway there, across from the campus, has been transformed by Technology Square. It has attracted huge companies to come who want to partner with Georgia Tech's research apparatus. So NCRs, there, Panasonic, Microsoft, Stanley, all kinds of huge companies. Norfolk Railroad is over there too, just have built these big high rises and brought in enormous amounts of investment to Atlanta and the state of Georgia. And so trying to make the state of Georgia a technology hub, which we're well on the way to being. So Science Square is meant to be a similar thing. So it's going to be on the other side of campus, just off campus, as I said, off of North Avenue. It's a partnership between Georgia Tech. Trammell Crow actually owns the big developers. Trammell Crow owns the buildings. Georgia Tech is one of the tenants, and they're attracting, really with a lot of partnerships with Emory University, to do a lot of biomedical research and hopefully incubate biomedical companies. That happens in Georgia. And when Scott and I were back in the legislature, there was a lot of talk of how Atlanta and Georgia were incubating all sorts of companies, but we didn't have the venture capital necessary to keep them here. And so if it was a technology thing, venture capitalists were in San Francisco or Austin. And so second round of financing would come, and this company is moving to Austin or to San Francisco, to Silicon Valley. So Technology Square is addressing that, and we're starting to see benefits. On the medical side of things, they go to Austin or Boston. Boston has huge venture capital ecosystem up there. So trying to make Georgia not just the technology capital of the South, but also the biomedical capital of the South. And so it's been there about a year and a half now, already starting to bear some fruit and see some companies being incubated and stay, seeing some companies being attracted to that area and move in and provide jobs. So it's exciting. I don't know. It's exciting. I thought it was pretty cool. And not just because Georgia Tech's involved, Emory's involved too, and a lot of great research being done there, and new things being created. They talked about a new type of stent that is a tech researcher has come up with, that is going to be a fraction of the cost. It's like 3D printed. It's a fraction of the cost that stents cost now. When people need that type of surgery for their heart, right now it costs about $30,000 to put a stent in, and they've come up with a way to 3D print these now, because they involve stents apparently involved organic material that's put around it, so that they can 3D print organic material these days, and so you can print this thing, and of course it greatly increases the likelihood that your body will accept it, because they take a little bit of your skin and 3D print it into the stent that you need and put it in your heart. So it's fascinating stuff that's going on, cutting edge stuff that hopefully is going to make
right there, man. That is some Star Trek stuff right there.
Yes. But hopefully over the next few years, we'll see the kind of transformation that you saw on Tech Square, where just, the biggest biomedical companies in the country and in the world are moving here and investing in Georgia and providing all sorts of jobs. So that's my happy story.
That is economic prosperity through innovation and the free market. I love it.
Yeah,
So here's one negative thing. I know Doge is on the march, and every federal grant through the National Institutes of Health and these sorts of things are under scrutiny. Don't cut the stuff that funds this kind of research that saves lives and puts America on the cutting edge of these very important things.
Unless Elon, you'd like to write a check to cover the cost, which I think you're good for it. And you can let the taxpayer off the hook.
It was funny last night. Well, it's sad / funny that we were listening to someone, like, all their credentials, like things they've done, be talk about. Like, this person got grant funding for NIH, and something else that's like obviously federally funded, and we're like, used to. They used to get grants.
Well,
for that.
look. I mean, the problem with the federal grants is that they're not all like this, right? They're not all going to this type of research. Sometimes it's to fund stupid things like transgender plays in a foreign country.
Yeah, but that stuff's the rarity, and like.
But it's what makes the headlines, right?
Well, I'm not gonna.
The fact that it was even in existence is problematic.
I'm not gonna argue with you, because like I was sitting down to talk to my barber, and her husband works the front desk, kind of keeps the shop running on time. And my barber, she has the chair next to the front desk, so he and I talk a lot about politics, and it came up, like, he's like, they found so much waste and abuse and fraud, and I'm like, by whose definition? Because like, I was like, I'm not going to sit here and argue that some of the stuff that gets funded is unnecessary, like,
like absolutely,
the stuff you just mentioned,
right?
Like,
sure.
USA, like, what is unnecessary in your eyes? What is unnecessary? If USAID funds projects to promote democracy in Africa, isn't that in our interest to support? Because one, if they don't get money from us to do stuff like that, or just to show like American interest in African nations, like, where are they going to get it from? They're going to get it from China. Like, we've talked about this ad nauseum.
Yeah,
right.
But I think there's no doubt the federal government for a long, long, long time has spent well beyond its means.
Yep.
It's absolutely appropriate to have a reckoning and say, listen, we cannot continue to do this. And so the question becomes, what in America do we prioritize?
Yes.
And I don't know that we're having that kind of conversation in the political climate. It's just everything is bad. Everything that all dollars that flow to universities is bad and wasteful and evil, and stop it. But that's short-sighted, and that would. So.
No, I mean, and that's the kind of stuff, like, the people don't realize how much investment, like, a lot of these grants that go to colleges for things like this, or for, like, my next door neighbor works for, I'm not going to mention what college, but he works for a college, and his job is essentially funded by a federal grant. He researches fentanyl. I mean, like, you don't want that type of a job to go away.
Yeah.
And research grants have funded a lot of exploration and research into technologies and things that we use on a daily basis. We need to be very careful. But I think my concern about Doge, Buzz, is more than anything else. It's the same concern I have about what's happening with the tax bill. It's like, you're doing these cuts and it's not really cuts to Medicaid, it's more cuts to the rates of growth. But because they're being done on a partisan basis, because Doge is being done on a partisan basis. One, it makes these cuts likely be reversed, which makes them temporary. And two, you need bipartisan buy-in to solve the big problems that we face in the United States today, including the problem with trust fund programs.
Yeah, no doubt. And probably some of it comes, I mean, Elon's fading back, but probably a lot of it, the problem comes with kind of the way I heard it phrased is there's this Silicon Valley mentality of move fast and break things. And yeah, sometimes that works when creative destruction can be very good in some cases in Silicon Valley. I'm not sure that is the right approach in the federal government to make long-lasting, permanent
I'll give you an
shrinkage.
example of that, right? So, for example, the federal government funds all kinds of research into avian influenza, and they fund activities that allow us to track flocks of geese that may be transmitting these types of things. We put in controls and safety measures to deal with it if there's ever an outbreak. And that type of research is federally funded research, a huge degree. The lion's share of all the research is federally funded. The benefit to the public on that is a safer food supply. If you eliminate the jobs that are related to tracking avian influenza right now, what happens to the food supply? And so there is a role for government. There's a role for federal funding in these types of things. That being said, the stuff that makes the headlines may very well be just a minuscule fraction of the total amount of spending that really needs to be cut out of the budget, but it resonates with the American people in a way that forces us to start paying attention to these things. And it also, because those programs exist, the ones that we all can agree on that are outrageous and federal dollars should never be spent on, because they exist, it adds justification for the actions to say, all right, we're going to cut it all off. And it's not, at least in the minds of the public, it wouldn't be done through an evidence-based solution or an evidence-based methodology of thinking, but it would be justified in the mind of the American public because all they heard was, oh my gosh, all this money is being spent on these crazy ass programs. Sorry, Ms. Laura.
Yes, right.
But let me take this opportunity to remind folks that of the top 5 federal expenditures or categories of spending are: number 1, Social Security; number 2, interest on the national debt; number 3, Medicare; number 4, defense; number 5, Medicaid. That is 3/4 of federal spending.
Right. And we
It
haven't
reminds
even
me
touched
of
any of it.
Yeah, it
We're not
reminds
touching
me.
any of it.
Reminds-
In fact, we're gonna. Sorry, Buzz. In fact, we're gonna add more interest to it.
Right. But through the tariff. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We'll get to tariffs in a little bit.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Buzz.
It reminds me of the guy at the debate years ago who was wearing a Ron Paul shirt, and they come up to him and say, "Why do you support Ron Paul?" And he says, "Because he's going to cut all the wasteful federal programs except Social Security and Medicaid."
Listen, I've learned a lot since I was on camera for that interview. So give me a break, will you?
Yeah, I mean, it's that, and I guess since we've been talking about spending, might as well talk about revenue and what's going on with the tax bill. But it's just it's mind-numbingly stupid to me to listen to people talk about, and this includes, like, obviously, when I talk about things that are mind-numbingly stupid, obviously you're baking Donald Trump into the cake. But to listen to Republicans, Chip Roy talked about how the tax bill will pay for half of itself, and that they're trying to find these spending cuts to pay for the other half. That is verifiably not true. The Tax Foundation put out an estimate, saying that extending the tax cuts from 2017 would increase long-run GDP by 1.1%, or 16% of the revenues you're going to lose from the tax cuts. 16%, not half. 16%. So I'm looking at what's happening with the tax bill right now, and for those of you who don't follow Congress on a daily basis, like unfortunately I have to do, all the committees that had instructions for reconciliation have marked up. By the time this goes live, we may or may not have a budget committee markup to combine all those recommendations into one single bill. We don't know yet because they're
a big, beautiful bill.
they're competing factions, and I'm not going to get into that stuff. I'm more want to talk about the deficit. You, as of right now, you're looking at about, I don't know, $2.6 trillion budget deficit, 2.7. That is before interest costs. So, because when you're adding that much to the deficit, you're not cutting as much spending as your revenue you're taking out. You're going to add interest costs, and according to the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, once you factor in interest costs, you're looking at $3.26 billion as written in total costs. So you're adding almost $600 billion in just interest alone. I remember in 2009 when Republicans talked about the 2009 stimulus bill, that they wanted interest costs added in because, you know, they wanted to see how much the whole thing's going to cost. And you know, they kept adding, you know, it's over $900 billion once you factor in interest. And of course, that was when interest rates on federal debt were like, you know, 2%, 1.5%. It was fairly cheap to borrow money. Now it's like 4%, 3.8%, something like that. Maybe even be even higher than that. But I'm looking through some of these things, and some of the provisions of the tax bill itself. Like, I like tax cuts. I cut a $20,000 check to the, well, I haven't cut it yet, but I'm about to cut a $20,000 check to the IRS.
If you haven't by now, you're getting late fees and penalties. But
well, I tried to go on and pay it the other day, and it wasn't showing up on my ID.me account. So whatever the fuck it's called. Sorry, Miss Laura.
Yeah, that because it's been doged. You know, that department's been doged.
Yeah, like I checked it last week. I was going to do it last week, and it wasn't there yet. So like I'm going to have to wait. I need to check it tomorrow. I have the money to pay it. It's just like,
you need to just go ahead and send the check, bro.
I don't want to write them a check. I don't have a checkbook.
If any IRS agents are listening, it will be paid very soon. Right,
yeah,
Jason?
Yeah. Don't raid the Pie household. His guitars are not as worth as much as you think they are. It's not going to cover off. It's not going to cover $20,000.
I was looking at a new one last night.
Stop. I'm trying to save your marriage.
Oh shit! She was laying next to me when I was like looking at it. I was like, I want to buy this. It's a $3,600 Gibson 335. Yeah, I want that thing. So it's gonna go on the Guitar Center credit card, baby. I promise. When you listen to this, I love you very much. Please don't kill me in my sleep. But let's say, like, the specific provisions of the bill, like there are some provisions in there that are just cataclysmically stupid, and it's not like, the universal savings account. I don't know if you guys saw this. Like in principle, I don't have a problem with, you know, a universal savings account where people can put aside money for their kids, and that the kids can access when they're 18 years old. You know, it's more expansive than a college fund, a 529. This is I don't have a problem with that. They're calling them MAGA accounts.
Who is?
The Ways and Means bill.
Oh.
They're not called Make America Great Again accounts, but they are.
It's just slang, right?
It's MAGA.
So it's Republicans are like, look at this MAGA program. Isn't it so sexy? It's going to help you out. You get to keep more of your money.
We're going to get to own the libs in the tax code. But
I get it.
They added in like most of what Trump wanted in taxes. Like, you know, they're doing the stuff for no tips, you know, no tax on tips, no tax on card. I'm just like, but this is where I was going with this. So we know TCJA was originally supposed to be for 10 years, and it was supposed to expire. We always knew that there was going to be a discussion about extending TCJA if the circumstances fit, and the circumstances currently do fit. You have a Republican Congress, you have a Republican president, quote unquote Republican president.
Oh, he's Republican. He doesn't share the same ideology
conservative
as the historic version of the Republican Party. But go ahead.
But what I was going to say was, let's in 10 years, we're going to have another conversation about making these things permanent again, if the circumstances are right. $4.48 trillion would be the cost of this bill that they're currently debating. And you add in interest, it's over $5 trillion, $5.2 trillion. This is the most. I love tax cuts. What Congress is doing right now at a moment when we're running nearly a $2 trillion deficit, and those $2 trillion deficits, by the way, are here to stay, because Republicans in Congress, conservatives in Congress keep arguing about Medicaid. They're ignoring the two biggest drivers, which are the cause of another driver, Medicare and Social Security, driving net interest costs up further, because those are we are creating a situation right now where starving the beast isn't going to matter when we're all eating cat food.
Well, there
Because
is no
interest-
starving the beast, right, Jason? Because all they do is they continue to borrow and print money.
Yeah, there's going to come a time where people who buy our debt, including other countries, start questioning our ability to pay this stuff back. And that's going to cause interest rates to rise. That's going to cause the price of everything you buy that you need to take a loan out for to rise. No new cars, or you're going to have a very expensive new car. Interest is going to be half the cost. Good luck buying a house when interest rates are over 10%. This is fiscally irresponsible to the much more than and I was against the bailouts. I was against the 2009 stimulus bill. I was against the COVID spending because we couldn't afford it. We can't afford this either. And I hate saying it because I want tax cuts. I hate paying taxes.
So, but just to be clear for our audience's sake, it's not that you're a big tax and spend liberal guy.
Yeah.
You would be okay if they could offset it with some level of spending cut that would match.
Yes,
the drop in revenue.
The spending cuts they're talking about, Medicaid is not. It's a driver of deficits and debts, but it's not the driver. It's not even. It's not. It's the fifth on the list of the top 5 drivers.
Right. I mean, and there's nothing you can do about the interest on the national debt at this point. You have to pay it back.
Right.
If you default on that, there's all kinds of really nasty things that happen.
Yeah, and if
the top thing is Social Security. So
it's Social Security.
Well, that's part of why Trump is badgering Jerome Powell so much, saying cut interest rates, in the hopes that would cut the cost of borrowing.
Yeah, but
because he knows we're going to be borrowing for at least the next 40.
Yeah, Jerome Powell's not like cataclysmically stupid like Donald Trump is. You can't just cut interest rates. You can't just cut interest rates and expect the problems to go away.
Right.
Well, he won't be president then, so it won't be his problem. So why does he care?
Yeah.
No, but what you said, Scott, 100%. Like if you're going to do this, you need to offset it.
Yeah.
Preferably fully. But you can't do that. You can't reform Social Security under reconciliation. So you need bipartisan buy-in. I prefer these things be done. I'm at that stage in my career where I prefer things to be done on a bipartisan basis.
I've got the solution for you. It is to raise revenue through this awesome plan. It's the most beautiful plan you've ever heard. America has been getting screwed in the marketplace for too long. So we're gonna introduce some big, beautiful tariffs, and we're gonna make China pay their own interest payments on our national debt. And tariffs are the answer to every problem right now. It's tariffs. We have it. And the beautiful thing about tariffs is it's them that are paying it, not us, right? We're not paying the tariffs. So make those Chinese communists pay for all this stuff.
Yeah,
that's what we need to be doing, Jason.
That's what I read on the Thomas Sowell Quotes Twitter account.
Yeah, is that guy
accurately reflects Thomas Sowell's views on these things?
If I were Thomas Sowell, I'd be going after that account, because that dude that runs the Thomas Sowell Quotes account is not a real fan of Thomas Sowell.
So this allows me to segue into Scott's topic, because and I already mentioned this, that long run the tax foundation says extending the tax cuts would increase GDP in the long run by 1.1%. 16% of the revenue. However, and getting into Scott's topic, the Penn Wharton budget model today, they I think released this, if not this week, that the tariffs that Trump has imposed are the equivalent to raising the corporate income tax rate from 21% to 36% and will reduce long run GDP by approximately 6%.
6% reduction in GDP.
Long run GDP.
So this is, oh man, I need the link to that because I'm in the middle of a flame war on Facebook and I need that as ammunition. Can you get me that link, Jason?
Yes, I will. Yes, I will. And I'll remind folks that Penn Wharton, that is where Donald Trump went to college.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we said this last week that we thought he skipped his economics class because Wharton is not known for putting out people who don't understand economics at the most basic level.
Right.
And here's the truth. And this is what I've been saying all along. And I get a lot of pushback from the MAGA crowd saying, you just have Trump derangement syndrome, Scott, because I point out, I'm so bold as to point out that you know who pays tariffs? You do, America. If you live in America, it's not the Chinese who are paying the tariffs. It's not the UK who's paying the tariffs. It's us. We're the ones who will see increased prices. And yes, Donald Trump announced a deal and he heralded a victory. And there were people immediately flooding my timeline on Facebook saying, I can't believe you think tariffs aren't working. Look at all this great stuff that's happening. So what happened exactly? Did you ask what the deal was? Or were you just satisfied that there was a deal? If getting a deal put into place was the win condition, without setting any parameters around what the tariff levels would be, then what were you doing this for? And how are you claiming victory now if you never clearly defined what the goal was? And we've never clearly defined what the goal is with tariffs. But we know how tariffs work and we know what impact that they will have. And we're seeing it now. It's starting to happen. A third of the ships in the Long Beach port are not coming. Year over year shipping, inbound container ships, cut by 35%. Bring that home to Georgia, where we talked about 600,000 jobs being reliant upon over 600,000 jobs, almost 700,000 jobs in Georgia that are reliant upon the port for both exporting goods and importing goods. That type of cut, 35% to 600,000 Georgians, is going to have an impact here. Today, after the deal, which I will go into details in just a second, Walmart announced their quarterly earnings. And they made their earnings, but they refused to give an earning projection for the rest of the year. And they also said that they were going to raise prices because of tariffs. Now, before you get onto this thing, well, Walmart just needs to buy more American stuff. 60+% of the stuff that's sold at Walmart today comes from the United States, because the Walmart business model has morphed from just durable goods to also food. And a lot of that food comes from farms right here in the United States. So they're already, 60% of their revenue is already US-based products and goods and services. So it's not Walmart's fault that they have to pass on the cost of these tariffs to the consumer. But when you go to Walmart and you're wondering why your tennis shoes that you bought that were actually made in China are 30% more than they were in December of last year, that is why you are paying for the tariffs. Let's take a look at what's actually in the deal. So as you know, Donald Trump said he's going to put tariffs at 145%. It's a very arbitrary number. He had some really messed up logic around why he picked 145%, but he picked 145%, and that triggered a global trade war. And the markets reacted to Liberation Day by tanking, absolutely destroyed. Every time that the market has responded in a positive manner, it's because the Trump administration has announced they're rolling back that 145% or whatever it was, because every country was hit with some level of tariffs. The tariffs before Donald Trump took office this year were dependent upon the product, number one. Number two, it depended upon, it was, nothing was over 30%. And some things had gone to 100% under Biden. But that being said, now everything's set to 30%, which is still higher because it's across the board on everything, not just certain products. 30% is still higher than what we were paying before Donald Trump took office. this is essentially a tax increase on you. You're the one that's going to pay. I'm tired of arguing with people about this. I'm going to continue to tell you what's happening. I do not suffer from Trump derangement syndrome. I don't think everything that he's doing is bad. That's Jason, not Scott. I think that there are some things that he's doing are good, right? It's not about being anti-Trump. It's about understanding economics and not just completely abandoning what I know to be true just because the president is from my preferred party. I'm not going to abandon telling you what's true ever. Walmart is the economic hub of communities across this nation. You're going to have 30% price increase on everything that comes from a foreign country, and that's over a third of what they sell. You're going to pay more. This was a tax increase on you, the American people.
And Scott, I was talking to this week with a friend who runs a steel fabrication company. They build a lot of buildings, commercial, industrial, and so forth. American steel. He only ever bought American steel. It's gone up 28%. And he would argue with people and say, no, let me explain to you the law of supply and demand.
Right.
When the demand for American goods goes up, the price goes up. So you can say, well, all these people who say, well, you should just be buying American and you won't have to pay the tariffs. They don't understand that practically everything you buy is part of a global economy.
Right.
And when the supply gets reduced over here, and the demand remains the same, it's going to flow to other places, which is going to raise the price. The way it works, it's economics 101. It's what you learn, what people learn in high school economics,
right?
Much less college economics. And people just have tossed that out the window.
They absolutely have. And I think the only reason why they do is because, and this is what I'm hearing. An old friend of mine, I used to work with her. She's a sweetheart. She lives in Texas, a very conservative lady, just awesome person. She was like, you surprised me. I'm shocked that you don't support this. Just give it time. Just give it time. And a few weeks ago, and I've grown tired of the whole have faith, Scott. You've lost faith, Scott. It's like, there's nothing to have faith in. It's not real.
Right.
I know what's real. And you telling me that tariffs are going to grow GDP is like trying to tell an astronaut that the earth is flat. I've seen how this works.
Right.
I've lived it. I've been involved in the decisions that help make the economy go. So I'm not going to abandon 49 years of life experience that tells me this isn't real. And I'm not going to tell you the earth is flat just because the president of the United States is a Republican. The earth is a globe. Get over it, Candace Taylor.
I mean, it's not just, and I had to step away for a quick second at the beginning of Scott's comments, but you're also looking right now, you had all this stuff that was supposed to, the ports are seeing this decline. The ports out in the West Coast are seeing decline in shipments from China. That's gonna start reverberating throughout the economy imminently. And it's going to take about a month, because it's going to take about a month for new goods that
if you
are now
go
operating
back
under a 30% regime to get over here.
I think within the first 10 episodes of this podcast, when we started doing this podcast, it was just around the time where there was Joe Biden was president, but we were telling you because of the stimulus spending that inflation was coming. We talked a lot about the price of bacon back then, several years ago now.
Yes,
we did.
Right? We had the Peach Pundit bacon tracker for prices, because that's how I recognized immediately that there was a problem with the economy. Was the price of bacon went up $2.50 a pound, like overnight. So we have this understanding of economics, not because we're like economics degree holders, but because we've lived it. The three of us have been in the policy world to understand how policy impacts the economy. So we told you 2 months before the inflationary spike happened on this podcast that was going to happen. We're telling you now that when there's a scarcity of goods, because you cannot, sending cargo ships into Long Beach is not like turning on a faucet. It's not instant on demand service. It takes time for those ships to get loaded up in their port of origin, get across the ocean and into a port. They're already not coming, which is creating a scarcity of goods. It's going to impact you. That lack of supply, if demand remains the same, will continue to escalate prices.
Yeah.
You're going, not only are you paying the tariffs, but you're paying an artificially inflated value for the goods that you're going to be buying for the next year.
That's right. That's right.
And that's why I've been so passionate about this the whole time. It has nothing to do with Donald Trump as being president and me not liking the guy. I could care less, honestly, about that. I really care about how these policies impact all of us. I care about your t-shirt business more than you do, apparently. If you're in the t-shirt printing business, I went through my closet because somebody who owns a t-shirt company, printing company locally, who good friends of mine, I love those folks. They were like, you got to have faith. You know, how can you say this isn't working? Explain it to me. I went through I have t-shirts from them. They're printed they're originally from Honduras or Nicaragua, every single one of them. And those goods have been tariffed. So you're going to pay more for your t-shirts, and I care about your business. I want you to be able to compete fairly and without government intervention into the marketplace, and which is what tariffs is.
The much celebrated deal that, celebrated by some, I should say, that Trump reached with the United Kingdom is something that still perplexes me. How people think this is a big. I mean, I think if it's a big deal for anything, it's sending a signal to the stock market that Trump is open to negotiation, that
Sure.
he's not completely insane, and that may be the case. But I was doing some research on this like just a couple of days ago, and because I hadn't read anything about it until I sat down to do some research, and I learned that obviously there's still a 10% tariff on goods coming from the UK. It's just that we slashed some sectoral tariffs, and I don't know if you guys knew this. We added these tariffs on the UK. Did you know we have a trade surplus with the UK? Not only do we have a trade surplus, we have had a trade surplus with the UK every single year since 2016.
So under Trump's description, we're
$6 billion
off.
trade surplus if just in durable goods, it gives 12% when you include services. We have a massive surplus with the UK.
Which by Donald Trump's definition of how these things work, we're ripping off England.
Right.
And the UK.
Yeah. Right. But now we're going to pay 10% more for everything that comes over there.
Yeah.
Which, when you think about the goods that come in, Jaguars. So tax the rich. I saw a meme this week. It was a cartoon version of AOC and Bernie Sanders. And they're waving American flags and they're saying, hey, would you like to buy some of our social policies? And two people in MAGA hats saying, ooh, gross, no, And then they're holding up communist USSR flags. And there's like, how about some economic policies? And they're like, oh, yes, that sounds great. Controlled marketplace sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
These are Bernie Sanders and AOC economic policies being pushed by Republicans right now. I live in a weird world. That's why I'm wandering in the desert, Jason. I'm wandering in the desert.
Dude, I've been there for 10 years. Like, where the fuck have you
been there? I was trying to find you, I guess.
Yeah, I'm further along. Like, I have a canteen. Come get some water.
Yeah,
but like it's the thing that just still blows my mind is that people. I look at the numbers, polling numbers. I spent more time looking at polling data in the past couple months than I think I ever have, even during the election. And I'm looking at polling data and just the disconnect.
Let me ask you this. Polling data is interesting topic on its own. Let me go pay some bills real quick. We'll come right back and talk about some polling data. Does that sound good?
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Conservatives Concerned is a network of political and social conservatives who question the alignment of capital punishment with conservative principles and values. Our programs include educating conservatives about the failed death penalty system and mobilizing them to bring about its end. We come to this issue for a variety of reasons. Some believe that small government and the death penalty don't go together, especially when we compare the high costs of capital punishment to life without possibility of release. Some don't trust the state to get it right. We already know that some innocent people have been sentenced to death, and for others, it may already be too late. Some believe that the death penalty contradicts our values about protecting life. Find out more at conservativeconcerned.org.
Golden Retriever Rescue of Atlanta, GRRA, is an all-volunteer, tax-deductible charitable organization. They are dedicated to providing veterinary care, comprehensive evaluation, and foster and adoptive homes to Golden and Labrador Retrievers who are abandoned, mistreated, neglected, or left in shelters throughout Georgia. We encourage you to visit their website grra.com and help connect people and dogs that need each other in their lives. You truly can make this world a better place by helping find homes of gold for these golden-hearted pups.
I swear to God, Scott, if you ever tweet at my wife again and send her the link to that website, I'm going to lose my shit on you.
Well, you noticed that today I sent you a link privately to one beautiful golden retriever puppy. I did, and that would be the last remaining sister of my own dog, Charlie.
Did you
who
send
is
this on
absolutely.
Peach Pundit, the text thread?
I did.
I missed it. I see
Yeah.
it now. Oh my God, I hate you so much.
No, you love that puppy. Go get it.
Here's the thing. Emily was in that earlier. Because she was reading me your texts as I was driving. So, but she didn't scroll up.
She saw it then.
Scroll up far enough to see it. So thankfully, but no. So going back to what I was talking about, like the polling data, like so for I don't know if I mentioned this last week or not, but I recently did a poll through my business Exile Policy that was with our friend Brett Lloyd of the Bullfinch Group. And I decided as I was looking at the results to only use three different data points, or I guess one category of data points, and that was the party identification, because I wanted people to see the complete breakdown between independents and Republicans, and because it was kind of, look, there are some things Republicans do, like maintaining a strong dollar. 74% of Republicans see the importance of, or the 92% of Republicans in total see the importance of maintaining a strong dollar. That's higher than Democrats, but when it in checks and balances in government, they're higher than Democrats. But when it comes to some like really important questions, Republicans suck. They suck.
Come on.
No, I mean,
you just can't say they suck without telling us more.
No. I mean, no. Like, let's. Do you approve or disapprove of the job President Donald Trump is doing?
Well, that's a tribal question.
It's a tribal question, but the disconnect is severe. 89% of Republicans approve of Donald Trump's job performance. 10% disapprove. Then you look at independents. I'm not mentioning Democrats here because we know how the Democratic numbers are going to turn out. But the disconnect, independents are who you need to win elections.
Right.
And Georgia's in the next year's Senate race, independents will decide that election between John Ossoff and whichever Republican goes up against him. Right. But you're going to sit here and tell me that you want that Republican to talk about how Donald Trump is doing everything on Buddy Carter. I'm the MAGA candidate in this race. 39% of independent voters nationally approve of Donald Trump's job performance. 55% disapprove. Now, I'll even go to take this away from Bullfinch Group in more recent numbers. Independent voters, Trump's approval on the economy, 32% approve, 54% disapprove. 33% of approve his overall job performance, 57% disapprove. I don't have the Republican numbers readily available because I was just tracking independents, but I guarantee the Republican numbers are going to show not just a positive rating, but a very high positive rating. And this is why I go back to what I was saying last week, and we've said repeatedly on the podcast over the course of how many years we've been doing this shit now? Like 3?
4.
It's the disconnect between the ordinary voter and the activist class of the Republican Party. It's just, and look, and I just released, for those of you who are interested, I sent this through Peach Pundit, the Signal thread with our Patreons, which, by the way, you don't even have to pay us money to be a part of that. You just have to be a
No,
Patreon.
actually, $5 Patreon level will get you access.
What Scott said. I just sent that through to the thread because it's literally fresh data. Like we just got this back yesterday, and I guarantee the same same thing. I haven't quite looked through all the crosstabs. I released stuff about the president's abuse of power. 55% of voters say the president's abuses power. I haven't looked at the independent number is 56%.
Bringing that home to Georgia for just a moment, and I've said this on the podcast before, but it bears repeating. You may not listen to every single podcast, but especially if you're thinking about running for office. But we saw a sort of a quick hit spinoff from this. We saw a press release today from Steve Gooch, state senator, 54th, 51st district, saying he's going to run for lieutenant governor. And in his press release, it was, "I'm the MAGA guy," right? It is, I think, short-sighted. Steve Gooch is a solid conservative, and he could run on his own 2 feet.
Absolutely.
I believe that he would be a very competitive and viable candidate, not just in a primary, but in a general election, if given the opportunity. I've known Steve for a long time. I really genuinely believe that. I'm not just blowing smoke up Steve's skirt. I think it's true. I think Blake Tillery's also a very viable candidate. Greg Dolezal, if he decides to get in, I think John Kennedy, I think the who have put their name forward to be considered at this point, all of them would be fine candidates. But a year in politics in Georgia is a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And we've already told you that some of these policies that are coming down the pike, we haven't felt their full impact yet, but we will. I think it is a strategic mistake for any candidate right now to say they are the Trump guy or they're the Kemp guy even. And you know how much I love Brian Kemp. You have to make your own brand. You have to bring your own solutions to the problems that Georgia is facing to be ultimately viable. Because if you tie yourself to the president at this point in time, it's not trending in your favor to win a general election. You may very well win that primary, but you have to, that's just the first step. You have to be thinking about the second step too. And so I am looking for a candidate right now for all of these races who are telling me about them, not their allegiance to somebody else's agenda, but what is your agenda? And I think as voters, we should be demanding that of candidates who are running for office, no matter what party we're part of or affiliate with.
Amen.
Yeah. Well, we don't have any quick hicks tonight.
Well, we do, actually. We got to talk a little bit about Marjorie Taylor Greene. I didn't want to make it a full-blown thing because since we have left you last
didn't
week.
send me any quick hicks is what I mean to say.
I did not. Yeah, I did not. But that being said, Marjorie Taylor Greene announced, we were, the last podcast that we did, we were telling you about this meeting that the congressional delegation was going to have to see if they could hash it out and work it out, who was going to run for what. And she had declined. And we were under the impression when we left you last that she was definitely, it's like all indications were she was going to run.
Sure.
I don't know exactly what happened. I have heard some speculation. I'll share with you the speculation that I heard is that she saw some polling data that indicated that there was no shot for her to win in a general. So on Friday night, right after our podcast had been published the day before, she went on social media and ranted for like 4,000 words or something, explaining why the Senate is a dysfunctional place and she doesn't want to be part of it.
It's filled with the calm, sensible, well thought out arguments that we have come to know and love from Congresswoman Greene.
Yes, very much so. That's a quick kick if you guys want to respond.
Well, I mean, she was going to lose. I think I was telling Emily this on the way home today that I thought the best candidate to go up against Ossoff is Raffensperger. He has shown independence. He's shown that he's willing to stand on principle and do what's right. And I know
I have some news there
It's
too.
my turn to talk, and you can talk in a second.
Yeah, but just when you're done, just come back to me because Raffensperger is something there.
I don't want to come back to you. I'm going to go to Buzz, and then I'll come back to you. So Buzz can yield his time. So, because right now the chair has the floor. But no, I mean, Raffensperger's the best. But you look at, and I said, Carter of the remaining rumors I've heard, Carter's definitely in. Carter might be the next best, but like he's from Savannah. When was the last time someone from Savannah or that area won a statewide race, a major statewide race? And if he's running to the right just to win the primary, because he is a politician, he knows his audience, that's going to hurt him in the general. And if the economy sucks next summer, Ossoff's just going to hammer him with that. Mike Collins is certifiably insane.
I disagree with that.
I mean, I'm being silly, but I mean, he's slightly to the left of Marjorie Taylor Greene. But some of the things he's tweeted out are going to come back. They're going to be part of ads that are run against him. I think, I think right now, I know Cook Political Report is keeping the race as a toss-up, probably wise. On my list, I put it leans Democrat. Buzz, it's your turn, unless you want to yield your time to Scott.
I'll just be brief. Just kind of overall looking at this race, there's a long way to go. We talked about before the polling, and Scott, you texted us one Trafalgar that showed what we've known. I don't know why they keep asking about Marjorie Taylor Greene. She ain't in, so maybe the poll. But
I think it was the older poll.
Yeah, it's
Trafalgar texted it to me today. And I thought that was weird, so I shared it with you guys. They texted it to me.
But it's almost a stack. If you look at how these polls stack up of who is ahead at this point in time in the Republican primary, it's a name ID test. And so it's MTG, it's Raffensperger second, it's Mike Collins third. Why should anybody be surprised by that? So there's a long way to go. John King has jumped out there, got some good media hits, talked to a number of the Atlanta stations. I'll be interested to see what kind of race he runs. The challenge for Buddy Carter is, as I like him, the challenge, as Jason said, is he's known in Savannah. He's got to introduce himself to the rest of the state, whereas a guy like Raffensperger is better known around the state. So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Plus, he's just way too ambitious. He's been talking about running for Senate for this is the third cycle he's been talking about it. Scott.
So I got some news, separate quick kick, spinoff from the Raffensperger thing. Somebody came to me yesterday. I was like, what is this Georgia Integrity Works organization? And I felt like I had known, but I wasn't sure. And I texted somebody in the Secretary of State's office and I asked them, and they're like, why do you ask? Somebody asked me, well, why are they asking? I don't know why they're asking. They asked, and I wanted to know more about it. And the one time I searched for it, it was mentioned in my Google search at the same time as Brad Raffensperger. That's why I'm reaching out to you. My Google search led me to you. That's why I'm asking. And it is an organization that has been associated with Brad Raffensperger. And we hear, I did not get one of these calls, but we hear from some of the more normie Republican class that there have been fundraising calls made for that particular organization, which I guess would be able to spend money in a state race, but not a federal one. Which, if it is a Brad Raffensperger joint, as Spike Lee would say, maybe he's raising money for a state campaign rather than a federal one. I don't know. This is speculation. This is information that I've come across. I'm sharing with you unfiltered.
We wild speculation here. That's
right.
Yes.
So it's not a done deal. And I have asked Brad Raffensperger directly, what are you thinking? And I've gotten no response.
So it's interesting. So in that same conversation, I said that I told Emily, I said, I think Raffensperger is better suited for a statewide race. And the reason is because this same reason I think Kemp bowed out of the Senate race is because the Senate's complete. Look, there's part of what Marjorie Taylor Greene said that's right. Write that down. I said that. Those words just came out of my mouth. The Senate is broken. It doesn't, it doesn't function.
Not that the House functions all that much better, but yes.
No, but the Senate is broken, and you're one of 100. you getting something done unless you do it by unanimous consent is pretty low. And
Yeah.
the stuff that's done by unanimous consent doesn't get the headlines.
Yep.
So Raffensperger, being, a independently wealthy person who's he was a businessman, right? Like, this is not the type of guy who's going to sit well in the United States Senate.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. Things are still developing, so stay tuned.
Yes.
One last quick kick for you, and that is Senate District 21, 8 confirmed candidates. We heard today that my preferred guy decided not to run. That's Wes Cantrell. Not to knock any of the other candidates, but I have a personal friendship. I served with Wes. We were in the same office suite together. We bordered each other's districts. We've been a source of consternation and helpfulness to each other over the years. And I love the guy. And I was really hoping he would, but he's not running. And I know he listens to the podcast. This is my sad face, Wes. But
yes,
with 8 candidates in a special election, there will be a runoff.
Yes.
Cue pitching Runoffs Are Stupid t-shirt merch available at peachpundit.com in the merch shop. Runoffs are stupid. There will definitely be a runoff with that many candidates. There's no way to escape it. I don't care who you are. There are 2-3 candidates in there that could really up the name ID race. And we're already seeing negative campaigning coming, attacking sitting Commissioner Steve West, who threw his name in the ring for that position. And that tells me who the front runner is in the early polls. Because why are you attacking Steve West this early, if not the fact that he's leading the race? So that being said, I don't know who did it. And I look forward to maintaining my objectivity for as long as possible so that I can moderate that debate in June with Americans for Prosperity.
Buzz,
What?
I know you have something to say. We've just been waiting on Scott to shut up.
Yeah, just one quick point about Senator Steve Goose jumping in. I found it interesting that he announced before Burt Jones made his announcement. Now, to me, that means that we're going to hear something from Burt Jones soon. That's
right.
That's my wild speculation.
Right.
Senator Gooch would not jump out there ahead of the lieutenant governor unless he knew something was imminent. That's my wild speculation there.
Well, folks, that's all we have for this week. Thanks for joining us. It's coming up on summer. Hopefully we'll all be around for episodes in the summer, but I'm going to send it over to Scott. Peace out. Have a good week. Go Dogs.
Ladies and gentlemen, every single month, these folks reach into their pocket and keep our podcast going so that you can enjoy this wonderful content, the best content, the most beautiful content. We have a new one this week. So we're going to put a special spotlight on Justin Wright. Thank you, Justin, for joining the people who rock. Also, Sam Thomas, Jordan Reed, Shannon Ferguson, Jeff Cobble, Hank Burnham, Ryan Purvis, James Hall, Colin Martin, Tony West, and our friends at Americans for Prosperity, Stuart Wilkinson, Ron Daniels, Mike Bucher, our anonymous contributor who wants you to know more about the Alzheimer's Association, Bo Brennan, Ryan Graham, John Vessel, Reed Powell, Bill Werkheiser, Robert Lee, and our friends at Leasix Media, and Brett Harrell and our friends at Conservatives Concerned. You too can join the podcast by heading on over our Patreons by heading on over to patreon.com/Peach Pundit. Sign up for one of those tiers. Like and subscribe, recommend to a friend, and we'll catch you next time.